Hi, Trevor. How are you? It's so great to see you from the other side of the pond. How are you doing today?
I'm well, Debbie. Thank you. Always good to chat.
Yes. So for you that are tuning in, again, we're on our series, High Road Leadership, but today I've invited another John Maxwell team member, Trevor Stockwell, and he is from Reading in England, right outside of London. So thank you so much for being here with us today. I know it's late on your side, but thank you for your time. And
It's all good.
the reason why I've called Trevor to be here is because he has just released in February of 2024 this year his first book. And I want to talk a little bit about the contents of his book because it lines right up with High Road Leadership. And High Road Leadership is a series that we're doing leading up to my leadership summit on October 18th at the Stony Point Business Center in Hillsborough, Virginia. So I want to tell you about the book real quick. It's called You Lead You, Self-Leadership Instead of Self-Sabotage. And the one thing that I really love about this book is it focuses on what we need to do for ourselves so that we can give to others and show up differently. We can't live, we can't help people out of an empty cup. So unless we're really working on improving ourselves, it's hard to help other people in the way that we really wanted to and leave a good legacy, behind. So one of the chapters that I was drawn to, and there's several, by the way, but one of them was attracting high caliber people. And so if we want to attract, obviously we attract who we are. So if you can talk a little bit about that with us today, Trevor, we'd love to hear more. So I turn it over to you.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So one of the benefits of developing a lifestyle of leading yourself well and sort of being conscious about how you're leading yourself and then other people, um, you're going to attract people around you that are of a similar caliber, if you like. Just let me just define that differently. So like as we grow, we automatically move away from certain crowds of people maybe or certain ways of thinking, and we naturally gravitate to, I won't say bigger people necessarily, but people that can be more successful in an area that you want to operate in. So it doesn't mean we're better than anybody else necessarily. It's just a case of we might be more skillful in a certain area, or we want to focus specifically on business or leadership or something like that. So you're naturally going to gravitate more to people that are more competent, skillful in those areas. So it's the thing of, as you develop your own leadership, so how you lead yourself and then how you lead others, you grow as a person, you grow as an individual. You want to be around people that are further along the road, be it experience or knowledge, understanding of certain areas. And you automatically want to gravitate into those areas. So you've grown up certain levels if you want. I don't mean it from a hierarchical perspective. I want people to understand that, anyone can get there depending what you focus on and where you want to be. But you'll naturally move towards a certain group of people or caliber of people, which means you'll automatically disconnect from another group. So they're just focused on different things. So everyone has value, everyone has the ability to develop skills. I believe everyone's got gold within them. So there's gifts, there's ways that they can express themselves that they find fulfillment, but also it will encourage, inspire other people as well. But I think it's more the case of when you're focusing on the areas that you want to develop and grow in, you will move towards others in that area as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I love how you say everyone brings value and there's a gold in everyone. But the
Yeah.
key here is that recognizing that, but also recognizing where you want to go and surrounding yourself with people that have already been there.
Yeah.
So I like what John Maxwell says, right in line with what you're saying, is that if you're the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room because
Absolutely.
then you're not growing because you're not around people that are in the places where you want to be. So that's why I love this chapter because it really lines up with if you want to be a high road leader, you have to be around other high road leaders. And some of that's really, I just finding people that are in those places that, like I said, you want to be. So I want to ask you, um, if someone is trying to get to another place and they're looking for that, sometimes I'll ask people, when I'm coaching with them, what do you want to do with your, for your dream career? And they'll say, this is what I want to do. And my next question is, have you talked to someone that's already working in the field doing that? And 9 times out of 10, they say, no, I don't know anybody that's working in the field. So when you're looking at high caliber people and improving yourself, how would you say that you go about trying to find that person that can be helpful to you? How do you go about doing that? I know there's different ways of doing it, but how do you go about doing that yourself?
I think it's recognizing that it's going to be uncomfortable to start with. Like from what you said, like I don't know anybody that's good at that. What they're really saying is I don't know anybody well enough that I'm comfortable chatting with that is good at that. And so there's always that new connection or some sort of stretching where you're leaving the familiar to then suddenly learn, meet, collaborate with new people, which is really good because that's how we grow. We all like it once we get over the initial step of what's it going to be like, most of the time, because most people are willing to help, you know, particularly if you're looking to grow and develop in good areas, there's lots of good people that are there to encourage and to help you because everyone's been there before, haven't they? If they're
Hmm.
not there now, they've been on the journey where you are now, and they've sort of traveled further on ahead. So they recognize it, and most people will be genuine and will help you along. But it's also realizing that they're not going to come and knock on your door and say, "Hey, do you want help with something?" A, because they don't know, but also there's something in the universe about exchange, isn't there? We have to leave something in order to get something else. We have to give something away in order to get something else. So you have to you have to make a change, otherwise change rarely will just come upon you in the way that you want it to. Change is around us all the time. But if we're navigating and controlling aspects of it that we can, we have to be intentional about that. Otherwise, we'll get the wrong sort of change. So if you don't step out, have that conversation and reach out with people, you're not going to grow and develop in that area. And therefore, you're going to limit yourself and the people that you could help by not taking that initial step, whether it's nervousness, fear, or maybe it's the ignorance of, I really don't know who to talk to. But then you take a step of finding out because the people that want to help, they're communicating all the time, aren't they? And it's just getting connected and aligned with actually that person sounds like they're the right person that can help me. You may find several people and then you go with whichever one you feel is the better fit. And when, person maybe you can collaborate with together or easier or whatever. But it's just that recognizing that there's an initial discomfort to then get the reward of you're moving forward and you're growing and becoming a bigger person in an area that you want to grow and develop in.
That's a good point about being uncomfortable because it is out of your element when you're going to move forward on anything and learn something new. And so not to be afraid of that and just know that it's going to happen. Because
Yeah,
if you're growing, if you're not uncomfortable most of the time, that means you're in the same place, probably pretty complacent, and then you're moving backwards because everything else is moving forward, right?
absolutely. Yeah,
So I like how you mentioned that. And it's going to be might be a little scary, but most people once they get over the line, they feel pretty good about taking that step and making that change because typically if you listen to Daniel Pink's written several books. One is What Drives Us, What Truly Drives Us, and he talks about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And mastery is something that everyone wants. No one signs up to be bad every day. Like most people
yeah,
want to be good at what they do, right? So getting out of your comfort zone is the only way to do it.
yeah.
So I love that chapter. Now, when we're thinking about high caliber people, working on ourselves, getting around the people that we want to be, what about legacy? Passing it on. Can you tell us a little bit about legacy?
Yeah. So I think you could break it down to two things really. Like the initial one is, okay, when I've died, when I've left this planet, what what will I be remembered for? What will people remember if they hear, you know, my name or something that I built? Which is really good. It's important that you know, to whatever level you want to do that, you're intentional about, building towards leaving something positive. But there's also the legacy of yesterday. So the conversations I had with people yesterday, how do they feel now about those conversations that I've had? Was it something good that I left with them? Was it maybe not so good? Or maybe was it really bad? So there's the aspect of, I think, now and the sort of the immediate past. And then there's the what do I leave when I've left the planet? Linked to that as well is you can only, I would say, to keep it nice and simple, leave a legacy in two different ways. So stuff, you either build something, leave lots of wealth or whatever that might look like. But then there's the people, isn't there? So what's the legacy I left in people? When they hear my name, when they see a picture of me, do they think good things? Do they immediately think of something that's not good? Um, and it's all about, if I'm thoughtful and I'm intentional, I can be a lot more positive in people's lives than if I just get busy with whatever, or I take on the wrong perspective when it comes to building relationships or how I communicate, how I'm feeling, or whatever. If we're not intentional about doing that well, we're all going to leave something, aren't we?
Hmm.
Is it going to be positive, or is it maybe not going to be, from other people's perspective, as useful and as positive as we think, or maybe as what we could have left? Um, so it's a big topic in some ways, but the essence really is what you do now has some impression on somebody.
Hmm.
I think it was John Maxwell. We love John. We really do. Years ago, I heard him say something that was very profound. He said he checks in with himself about, am I genuinely interested in people? So whether that's people you just pass in the street and you have a very brief interaction with, at a store or something like that. Have I been positive, or have I just forgotten about them completely? Now, obviously,
Hmm.
certain people we have longer that we spend time with and have a bigger influence than others. But if you keep that perspective that everything I do really and I say has the potential of leaving something positive or not, short term or long term, then it helps to sort of check our behavior, check the way that we communicate or what we're thinking about, when it comes to what do I want to build? What do I want to put out there in the world that will help people, that will, you know, influence people one way or another? And then is there somehow that I can be intentional about making that more effective years after I've left? Or if that's not your focus, if that's not your passion, how can I build a good family? How can my children or relatives or whatever live better and have a more effective or positive life because I've been in their world?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how you mentioned thinking about what you're doing presently, but also looking at your immediate past just to see what kind of impact you might have made on someone, or maybe
Yeah,
positive or negative, whatever it is, and if you need to take any action. And along with John Maxwell, how he says one of the most important things is, not just experience, but evaluated experience. And so one thing he does every day is he said, okay, what did I do right today? What could I have done better? Really
yeah,
taking a look at that. So going back to see, what did you do recently? And saying, do you need to make a change it is going to affect your legacy, because people remember, they'll remember that, especially if you have to go back and correct some things. The one thing I like in it, the quotes in your book, it's about when you're evaluating your self leadership. If you're evaluating by your wealth, that's one thing. But one of the most important things to evaluate it by is the treasure that you leave behind in other people's hearts. And that
yeah,
really is the most important thing than the stuff, right?
yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah, it like you can have lots of stuff left from a relative and all that, but if when you think about that relative or you see the stuff they've left, for some reason there's, it's either bittersweet or there's just something that's not, doesn't give you a positive feeling, then it's it's not the best outcome, is it, really?
No.
Let's put it that way. No.
It definitely isn't the best outcome. So these are great things to think about, especially if you want to operate as a high road leader. And it doesn't
Yeah,
mean that you have to have the position as high road leader. You can be a high road leader to anything and anyone. Everybody leads something in your life, no matter what
yeah,
it is. So these concepts that we talked about today can be incorporated into your life and anyone's life, really. All you have to do is be intentional about it. Once again, want to share the book, You Lead You, Self-Leadership Instead of Self-Sabotage. Fresh, hot off the press, February 2024 just came out. You can find the book on trevorstockwell.com, or you can find it on Amazon, either way. So encourage you to go out and look at the book, read Trevor's story. He's got a great story where he was when he was growing up and where he is now. Anyone can make that change. You just have to be intentional. So I thank you again for joining us today, Trevor. It was great to have you,
no,
and
it's great to
all the
be
way
here.
from England. And good to see you as always. And for the listeners here, remember to stay tuned to this channel every Friday to hear more about high road leadership. And we'll be doing this all the way up until October 18th, the Leadership Summit at Stony Point Business Center. Thanks for tuning in and have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye, Trevor.
Bye bye.